My beloved, do you think it's an accident that you're hearing my voice right now? No. Heaven planned this moment long before you took your first breath. Here on Holy Voices, we share the whispers of eternity, the messages that change hearts and awaken destinies. If your soul is ready, stay with me, because what you're about to hear might be the very word your spirit has been waiting for. We are building a family of light, 40,000 voices strong. Your subscription makes you part of it. They are completely going crazy attempting to identify you. At this moment, the individuals who attacked you are frantically asking one another, who is this person? What are they? How are they still standing after everything we threw at them? They are pleading with entities for information, asking practitioners for answers, and demanding to know why their most potent attacks keep failing and why WH protects you. You will comprehend by the end of this revelation why the person who attempted to destroy you is now occupying that hospital bed, why money is currently disappearing from your enemy's accounts, and why you are going to acquire wealth that will permanently quiet all those who question you. Someone you fully trusted was the first to be betrayed. There was a risky game being played by someone in your life. They were surreptitiously recording everything about you while they grinned in your face, laughed at your jokes, and pretended to be concerned about your welfare. Your routine, your weaknesses, your aspirations, and your timetable. A group of people who wanted you removed from the world were hearing about all of it. They believed they were untouchable. They thought they could continue to control you while working for their true owners. They told themselves that you trusted them so much that you would never find out they were lying. They made one disastrous mistake. They failed to account for the consequences of betraying a loved one. This double agent is currently dealing with such serious repercussions that they are beginning to doubt all of their preconceived notions about reality. Doctors are unable to explain why their health is deteriorating. Their relatives are betraying them. Mysterious emergencies are causing their money to vanish. And that's only the start of what lies ahead for them. This betrayal is made even more horrible by the following. They were not alone in their work. This was not the jealousy or animosity of a single individual. What you witnessed was a well-planned plot by several people who got together behind closed doors, plotted your demise, and believed they could all work together to eliminate someone who was protected by God. They were unaware that every gathering, every scheme, and every malevolent intent was being documented in the spiritual world. They were unaware of the impending trial for which evidence was being gathered. The charges that will soon be submitted in the cosmic court were being prepared. You will be shocked at the tactics they used to assault you. When social sabotage and gossip weren't enough to destroy you, this network chose to break boundaries that most people aren't even aware exist. They resorted to spiritual warfare, employing techniques so sinister and illegal that even seasoned practitioners forewarned them of the dangers. They collected your personal belongings, including hair from your brush, clothes you've worn, happy-looking photos of yourself, and objects you've handled. They employed these in complex rituals that were intended to drain your life force, bind your spirit, and give them your power. They chanted for your destruction as they burned candles over your portrait. They made effigies of you and tormented them in the hopes that this would cause real pain to you. Some even went farther. They communicated with beings from lesser spiritual planes, giving sacrifices in return for the ability to wipe you out. In your name, animals were killed. Over the flames, curses were uttered as personal belongings were set on fire. When forces that thrive on human pain asked for your destruction, blood was shed. They believed they were dealing with a regular individual who would fall victim to these assaults. They were unaware that they were going after someone whose spiritual defense functions on a plane beyond their comprehension. In real time, every ritual they carried out was being undone. Each curse was being returned to its originator. At your spiritual boundaries, every being they called was being rejected and sent back to demand payment from their summoners. Everything altered with what followed. As your adversaries carried out their sinister rites and congratulated themselves on their cunning, something remarkable started to occur in your life. You began to overcome challenges that ought to have crushed you. You started to succeed where you have previously found it difficult. Suddenly, opportunities began to arise. Your adversaries looked on in terror as their strikes not only failed, but also appeared to be making you stronger. You rose higher the more they sent against you. You grew more unbreakable the harder they attempted to break you. Your spiritual gifts grew stronger the more they tried to sap your vitality. It seemed as though you were consuming their assaults and using them as fuel to further yourself. This is when your assailants started to panic. They were baffled as to why their tried-and-true strategies were failing. They were unable to understand why you continued to get stronger rather than weaker. They started to suspect that you could be more than they had first believed. Their entire worldview was about to be shattered by the reality of who you truly are. Your foes sought advice from darker practitioners and contacted more powerful entities in an attempt to understand why their attacks were not succeeding. They promised these troops anything they desired in return for your destruction, and they established more legally binding agreements and offered more sacrifices. They were utterly scared of what followed. These beings were unprepared for what they came upon when they came toward you. A selected individual functioning under divine control, encircled by armies of warrior angels linked to a power source that rendered their own skills insignificant. After seeing your spiritual shield, these evil spirits ran away in fear. Some were destroyed upon touch because they were so overcome by the holy light that surrounded them. Others withdrew instantly, but not before sending a frightful message to the people who had called them. We can't touch the person you lead us to. You have misled us about your target's characteristics. Payment is still necessary. These things were hungry and angry now. Your foes were engulfed by the very forces they believed they controlled, but since they were unable to feed on you, they focused on the only source of payment, the humans who had originally called them. Finding out that a member of your own family had accepted pay to help destroy you was one of the most terrible betrayals. A member of your family who was meant to love and care for you instead decided to make money off of your failure. Your adversaries couldn't have gotten inside information from this family member in any other manner. Not everyone is suited for the Holy Voice's inner order. It's for the people who emerged from hell radiant and with a smile. Being loved is not why you came here. We remember with you, and you come here to remember who you are. There is no community here. The spiritual elite use it as a battle room. A headquarters for reality benders, timeline jumpers, and curse breakers. Weekly Zoom calls are live frequency upgrades in which the veil lifts, codes unlock, and dragons speak. You'll have access to transmissions from the past that were never intended for the general public, energetic technology, and elite downloads. Since most people can't manage what you hold inside, let's face it. You resuscitate, reclaim, and reign instead of healing. In the description, click the link. Welcome to the Holy Voice's Inner Order, where you become the source, if you're sick of superficial nonsense and ready to join the anointed at their meal. They provided information regarding your early traumas that might be utilized against you in rituals. They divulged family secrets that were supposed to remain confidential. They gave you access to objects from your history that you might use to launch spiritual assaults. They even assisted in planning the exact moment when you would be most at risk. They believed that the money they got in return would help them with their financial issues. They persuaded themselves that their betrayal was justified. They might have been envious of your presence. Perhaps they were angry with your accomplishment. Perhaps they felt entitled to your possessions due to familial ties. They failed to take into account the fact that betraying a chosen one not only costs you money, but it also robs you of your spiritual shield and brings curses down through your family line. Now, this family member is witnessing the breakdown of their life in ways that are almost unearthly. Due to unforeseen costs and emergencies, the money they received is vanishing. The turbulence they brought into the family line is having an impact on their own kids. Their health is deteriorating quickly. As the truth about what they did starts to come to light, their relationships are falling apart. At the same time, an even more startling betrayal was taking place. Your foes chose to use physical force to subdue you after spiritual assaults and betrayals from family members failed. They employed a person whose responsibility it was to deal the death blow. Someone who was meant to use whatever measures possible to put a permanent end to your story. This person thought you were simply another target, so they accepted the contract. With the same icy efficiency they'd applied to others, they analyzed your habits, identified your patterns, and got ready to finish their goal. They received good compensation and detailed instructions on when and how to behave. Your adversaries thought that this would finally and permanently resolve their issue. The moment this assassin approached you, something extraordinary occurred. They sensed your energy and had an experience they had never had in their working lives. The obvious indication that someone is working under heavenly protection. They were increasingly uneasy the closer they approached to you. The harvest belongs to the sower. Plant your $50 seed into holy voices and prepare for your season of breakthrough. Their customary assurance vanished. They started shaking their hands. Every time they considered finishing their objective, they were overcome with a feeling of dread. Every cell in their body seemed to be shouting warnings about the seriousness of the error they were about to do. At last, they were unable to complete it. It was impossible for this professional killer, who had never broken a contract, to hurt you. They actually started operating subconsciously to keep you safe from the folks who had employed them. Your adversaries were discovering that when they saw your actual character, even their most reliable weapons turned into your pals. As your adversaries planned assaults on your person and soul, they also learned something that made them even more desperate. In addition to financial wealth, you will inherit a great deal of spiritual abilities, heavenly authority, and cosmic power that have been building in your family for many generations. They persuaded themselves that by using the law, they could steal it. Records were falsified. Fake signatures were used. Authorities received false claims. To obtain guardianship over your possessions, some even tried to have you deemed legally incompetent. They thought they could use papers to somehow overturn heavenly will if they could lawfully take what was spiritually yours. They believed they could sabotage worldly processes to deny you heavenly gifts, so they lavished vast sums of money on attorneys, court costs, and bribes. Before the legal procedures were even finished, they had already started allocating your fortune among themselves since they were so sure of their strategy. They failed to realize that stealing a chosen person's heavenly heritage is no more possible than stealing the light of the sun. Spiritual authorities were documenting every attempt to scam you. Criminal cases were already being constructed against them, and each fake signature was adding evidence to those cases. Everything they believed to be true was about to be shattered by the revelation of your true identity. You may have questioned why you continued to survive things that destroyed others up until this point in your trip. You may have wondered why their attacks seemed to make you stronger instead of weaker. You may have wondered why even experienced murderers couldn't bring themselves to hurt you. You are going to be astounded by the response. In a broad sense, you are more than merely a chosen one. You are a being of such high spiritual frequency that you are effectively functioning as a divine agent in the material world. Spiritual traditions refer to you as a seraphim in human form. A portion of your consciousness is outside the domain where typical spiritual assaults are effective. This explains why you were not affected by their magic. Their curses backfired because of this. Their hired practitioners continued to fail because of this. That's why when dark things came into contact with your energy, they ran away. An angel cannot be cursed. Divine light cannot be hexadecimal. Someone who has cosmic authority cannot be bound. This is what your foes sensed but were unable to comprehend as they were frantically attempting to understand who and what you were. They were aware that you were unique and that you followed unidentified rules. However, they made the deadly error of believing that dark sorcery at the street level could defeat divine authority. It was like attempting to use a water pistol to battle the ocean. And now the consequences were going to drown them. You were getting protection and direction from places they couldn't even fathom, while your adversaries were scheming and planning in this world. You were downloading from spiritual guidance, accessing other realms as you slept every night, and being informed of their intentions before they were carried out. Your forefathers put an extra effort to protect you. This was the perfect moment that generations of strong spiritual warriors had been waiting to show off their defensive skills. Forces beyond the physical world were intercepting every attack your foes launched. Ancestors were rerouting every curse they transmitted because they would not allow their bloodline to suffer. This struggle was never yours to fight alone. You had a whole army of spiritual guardians on your side, and they were growing more and more incensed at the foolishness of anyone who believed they could hurt someone in their care. In the meantime, your meditations and dreams were also providing you with strategic knowledge. Before your adversary could carry out their intentions, you were being shown them. Countermeasures were being handed to you before they were even necessary. You weren't even aware that you were getting ready for victory. Because of your unrestricted access to higher dimensions, you were unstoppable. Why you were constantly ahead of the game. Why you were never astonished by their surprise strikes. This was not the only reality in which you were conscious. They were starting to understand the whole extent of what they had gotten themselves into, and that scared them. Not only were their spiritual assaults failing. With terrible force, they were backfiring. Authorities were discovering their attempts at legitimate thievery. The assassin they had hired had changed sides. Instead of you, they were being devoured by their dark entities. At last, they realized they hadn't targeted a regular person. When they understood that they had declared war on someone who was acting under heavenly protection, panic broke out. They were overcome with fear when they realized that each attack they had launched had resulted in karmic debt that needed to be paid. As they searched for a way out of the spiritual trap they had set for themselves, their desperation drove them to even more drastic actions. In the belief that distance would shield them from the repercussions of their acts, several tried to escape to other nations. Others looked for stronger practitioners who might be able to undo their actions. Some even tried to bargain with various spiritual forces, sacrificing more in order to be shielded from the karma they had produced. Nothing was successful. They had gotten themselves caught up in a web. And each escape attempt simply made it worse for them. Geographical bounds are irrelevant to the spiritual principles they had transgressed. Negotiations and bribes are not accepted by the cosmic justice they had aroused. Attacks on its charges are never forgotten or forgiven by the divine protection they had contested. The universe's own justice system was about to be revealed to them, and its decision was imminent. The events that followed can only be explained as the precise application of divine justice. Every individual who had taken part in the plot against you started to face repercussions that were precisely suited to their individual offenses against you. The traitor who had given your adversaries knowledge was shut out of the world. When the truth about their double existence came to light, their family turned against them. When their friends saw how dishonest they were, they left them. Your enemies were visiting hospitals on a regular basis with ailments that seemed to defy medical explanation, while you were growing stronger and healthier every day. Their own bodies were exhibiting the illness they had attempted to infect you with through their rituals. Some became ill with enigmatic conditions that were difficult for medical professionals to identify. Others suffered from illnesses that appeared to have no evident origin and started suddenly. Some experienced mental health problems that necessitated hospitalization right away. The spiritual attacks they had launched against you were the primary cause of every symptom they were exhibiting. It was the ideal irony. Their own vitality was being depleted by the weakness they had intended you to feel. Their own judgment was being clouded by the confusion they had attempted to instill in your head. They were now always with you, the anguish they had wished upon you. As they sought therapy for ailments with spiritual rather than physical roots, medical expenditures were mounting. Since the root of their suffering was outside of this area, no doctor could assist them. It was the bodily manifestation of karmic consequence. Your adversaries were unaware that many of their spiritual assaults also amounted to serious crimes in the material world. Theft of identity for ceremonial reasons. Personal property theft for the purpose of spell work. Numerous types of fraud, conspiracy accusations, and in certain situations, far more serious crimes that the authorities were only now starting to investigate. Covertly, federal agents had been assembling cases that would surprise all parties. Experts were uncovering digital tracks your adversaries believed they had covered. The origins of financial transactions were being identified. People were coming out with details regarding plans and discussions. There was mounting evidence of a well-planned conspiracy that went beyond several legal lines. Some were charged with crimes that could land them behind bars for decades. Others faced financial penalties that would permanently impoverish them. They were all learning that believing that you are above the law because you are working in spiritual realms does not shield you from repercussions on earth. Search warrants were being carried out, arrests were being made, and court dates were being set when such religious activities involved criminal activity. The same people who believed they were untouchable were now in handcuffs and facing charges they never would have thought to confront. Your adversaries were discovering that both spiritual and legal avenues are used by divine justice. The effects that would have a long-term impact on your enemy's family lines were the most terrible of all. When you give with joy, heaven records it. Your seed in holy voices is eternal, Philippians 4 verse 17. They did more than simply inflict karma on themselves when they chose to utilize ritual magic and blood sacrifice against you. They triggered spiritual repercussions that would spread like poison across their families. Their family now had a permanent attachment to the uncontrollable beings they had summoned. As a result of the decisions made by their family, children and grandchildren who had nothing to do with the attacks on you would now experience spiritual persecution. Previously blessed family lines were now cursed. It would take eons to purge the darkness that had formerly contaminated bloodlines that once carried positive energy. Until someone in their family was strong enough to end the cycles they had established, the negative energy your opponents had produced was circulating through their family trees, causing dysfunction, illness, and failure to recur. In the meantime, the exact opposite effect was being felt in your own family line. Blessings that had lain dormant for decades were now being triggered. Family members who had never displayed psychic skills were now developing spiritual gifts. In order to bless future generations, divine favor was already pouring through your ancestors and would continue to do so through you. While destroying their own bloodline, they succeeded in blessing yours after attempting to curse it. The justice was absolute, and the irony was flawless. Something wonderful started to happen in communities you were unaware of as your success became indisputable. Others with heavenly connections, other gifted people, and other selected ones had been observing your predicament and were astounded by what they saw. News of the guy who had survived what should have been unsurvivable was circulating. The person who transformed every curse into a blessing was the subject of stories. Legends were being formed about the chosen one who exemplified what full-power heavenly protection looks like. People in circles where such recognition truly means something were speaking your name with reverence. Opportunities in the actual world that seemed to come out of nowhere were a direct result of this spiritual realization. People were connecting with people who knew exactly who you were and what you could accomplish. Doors that had not been visible before were opening. Resources that were ideal for your objectives and needs were starting to appear. You were entering a realm of abundance and support that mirrored your actual self and mission. A community that embraced and supported your heavenly mission was replacing the one that had attempted to destroy you. Your life was growing extraordinarily wealthy due to your spiritual capabilities, which were the same skills your adversaries had attempted to take. The cosmos was making sure you were materially and spiritually rewarded for what you had gone through. You were getting exponentially more money than had been spent trying to destroy you. As people saw how powerful and genuine your skills were, some of this prosperity began leaking through your spiritual efforts. Some were arriving through opportunities and investments that appeared to have been carefully planned by God. As retaliation for their fraud attempts, some were coming through the very inheritance your adversaries had attempted to take, which was now larger than ever. It was all proof that assaulting someone you've selected doesn't always work. It ensures that the victim of your attack would receive immeasurable blessings as the cosmos righted the wrong you tried to cause. Your adversaries had put money into your demise and were now powerless to stop it from paying off, making you rich while leaving them penniless. Your financial independence was being built on the money they had lost. Upon reflection of all that had transpired, the pattern became evident. In the end, every assault on you had strengthened your position. Your true allies have been exposed by each betrayal. Every time someone tried to steal from you, you ended up getting even more than you would have initially. Without realizing it, your adversaries had turned into the tools of your ascent. Their spiritual assaults had compelled you to learn and hone skills you may not have realized you had. Because of their legal challenges, you now have resources and protections that you would not have otherwise had. You were able to connect with communities where you actually belonged despite their attempts to exclude you. They wrote the most impactful chapter of your beginning instead of the finish they had planned to write. They had become the inadvertent architects of your success since every tactic they had used against you had backfired so badly. The malignancy they disseminated had been insufficient to harm an individual functioning under divine control. Their falsehoods had been too obvious to deceive anyone who mattered. Their falsified proof had been too blatantly fraudulent to withstand scrutiny. You are not an ordinary person. You're not only getting by. You're not only surviving. You're a true one. You have been selected. People who are motivated by fear, envy, or spiritual darkness cannot change your destiny. You're still standing in ways that make it clear who you are and what you can do, even after your foes threw everything they had at you. The possibilities for your life are only limited by what you have already encountered. Your triumph over these specific adversaries has prepared you for more significant conflicts, more elevated service, and more potent manifestations of divine force. You are qualified for assignments that call for that degree of tried and true strength because of your shown ability to defeat coordinated spiritual assault. The abundance that will be handed to your management is far more than the wealth that is already coming to you. The platform you will be given to assist others will begin with the recognition you are currently receiving. The authority you will possess as you fulfill your complete mission is simply a glimpse of the protection that has been displayed around you. Your adversaries unintentionally did you a favor. They gave you just the right amount of resistance to build the spiritual muscles you'll need for all that comes after. They provided you with a triumphant tale that will inspire others, open doors, and prove your suitability for more challenging tasks. The conflict is over. You prevailed. Not only this fight, but the whole war. Not only are your adversaries vanquished, but they are completely obliterated. Your betrayers are separated, not merely exposed. In addition to failing, your enemies are eaten by the identical darkness they attempted to employ against you. You're doing well. You're getting up. You're evolving into the person you were always intended to be. Greetings on your triumph, selected one. You are unquestionably a genuine person because you are still here, still standing, and still getting stronger. Beloved soul, if this message has spoken to your heart, don't let it end here. Click that like button so the light can spread to more people who need hope. Subscribe to Holy Voices so you never miss the next word heaven has for you. And leave a comment below. I read every one, and I pray over them. Remember, faith grows when we share it, so share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Until we meet again, may God's peace cover you and His voice guide your every step.